Good Shabbos, everyone. This Shabbos, we will be having the privilege of reading Parshas Mattos Masei. It also, Shabbos is Rosh Chodesh Av, and we will be taking out two Sifrei Torah, and we'll be reading the Maftir from Rosh Chodshechem. And it is the Rosh Chodesh Av, the beginning of the 9 days that we are beginning the very sad period of the 9 days and culminating in Tisha B'Av. And in Parshas Mattos, of these two Parshas, Mattos Masei, this Shabbos we learn about the first mega millionaires. I mean, everyone was well-to-do, everyone was well off. In the Midbar, they received the Rechush from Mitzrayim, and the recent campaigns that they were able to achieve tremendous wealth from the conquered nations of Sichon and the lands of Og, Melech HaBoshan. But the Torah tells us that amongst the Jewish people there were mega millionaires, B'nai Gad u'B'nai Ruvain. They had a lot of property. U'miknei Rav, the pasuk says, Haya livnei Ruvain v'livnei Gad. Otzum ma'od. And when the Torah, that does not engage in hyperbole, if it says otzum ma'od, you know that they were exceedingly wealthy. And they needed to know what to do with all of this the cattle and the flocks of sheep, that they were tremendously wealthy after their victory of Sichon and Og. And they came to Moshe Rabbeinu with a proposition that they wanted to take this vast land of Sichon and Og, and they wanted to settle there. And they said to Moshe Rabbeinu that it's a win-win proposition, and if we stay here, we'll build Gidrei Tzai Nivna Libikneinu. They were concerned with being able to have a place to house and to continue to grow their great wealth. So they said, Gidrei Tzai Nivna Libikneinu, we'll build corrals and stables for our flocks and for our cattle, v'orim l'tapeinu, and we'll build houses and homes and cities for our children. And they made a condition with Moshe Rabbeinu that they weren't turning their back on their brothers and sisters who were entering the land, but they made it conditional that va'anachnu neilech chushim lifnei b'nei Yisrael, that we will be there to give armed support in the campaign to conquer the land, just like our brothers did when we conquered the land of Sichon and Og. And not only that, va'anachnu neilech chushim, that they promised that it's not enough that they would join in the campaign, but they would be the first line of attack. They would be the first guard. And this is something that Moshe Rabbeinu recognized that they wanted, and he made a deal with them. This is the T'nai of B'nai Gad u'B'nai Ruvain, that all commerce with making conditions, we follow the formula that Moshe Rabbeinu, that the Torah describes in the T'nai of B'nai Gad u'B'nai Ruvain, that if they fulfill their commitment, and it's only when the Jewish people, all of the different tribes, would have a place in Eretz Yisrael, then they would be released. And Moshe made this condition with them, and they fulfilled their condition. And we are told that it was only 14 years later they left their homes. They were the first line in the battle, and they risked their life. And only after 14 years being away from their homes, when they finally settled for all of the Shvatim, the land of Israel, and they gave it out, then Yehoshua ben Nun, he released them to return to their homes in Ever LaYarden, in Transjordan, to return home. And they returned home after 14 years of heavy battle, and And these were the individuals. You could imagine what heroes, the Bnei Gad Uvnei Ruvain. They were great fighters. They were heroic warriors, courageous, and they were men of honor, men of great honor, who risked their life to be in front, to be the first line of defense and in attack against the enemies of the Jewish people, to conquer the lands and to fulfill the will of Hashem. And as Moshe Rabbeinu told them that that the main thing in life is you have to keep your word, and they did keep their word. And you would think that these individuals, Bnei Gad, Bnei Ruvain, were such great heroes of the Jewish people. They were the first line of every attack, and they fulfilled their word, and they were men of such great honor and valiant individuals. So you would think that these individuals would be, with the schus, the merit of their heroism, would be there to protect the subsequent generations. And I'm sure it was there to protect their subsequent progeny who lived in Ever Yarden. But this time of the 9 days that we commemorate the Golus and all of the Golus, the exiles, we are told that unfortunately, it was the Bnei Gad, Bnei Ruvain, those who lived Ever Yarden, who were the first ones to suffer Golus. And the question is, why was that? I mean, if we read about the heroism, about how valiant and how honorable these men were who kept their word, who risked their life on behalf of the Jewish people, and Yoshua agreed at the end of those difficult years that they were apart from their families, that they kept their word, and they risked their life all of that time on behalf for the Jewish people. You would think that that would be a schus that would have protected them, but no. We're told that they were the first to go into Golus, and the lost tribes of the Jewish people. That hopefully, Mitzvah Hashem, the Mashiach will come and we will see them again. But the Bnei Gad of Bnei Ruvain were part of that. And the question is, I would think that they would have the schus of their illustrious fathers, these heroic men, these heroes, to have protected the progeny. And yet, apparently, there was a problem. And I think it's important to analyze, especially this time of Golus, to find out where the problem was that did not allow for the Bnei Gad of Bnei Ruvain's children to be protected from the actions of these heroes, be protected in merit of these actions of these heroes. And if you look at the psukim, it's very telling. There was a flaw in the value system of the Bnei Gad of Bnei Ruvain. They were heroes, they were honorable men, but there was something missing. There was a disconnect. Because the pasuk says that when they approached Moshe Rabbeinu, they asked Moshe, and it was very telling in the way that they explained themselves to Moshe, that they said, Gidrei Tzayin Nivna Libikneinu. They said to Moshe Rabbeinu, allow us to settle here so we can be able to take care of our property, and we will make corrals for our cattle and for our flocks. And then they mention V'arim L'tapeinu, and then we'll make cities and homes for our children. And you see that the value system, the concern of the Bnei Gad of Bnei Ruvain was on their property, on their business. And what was secondary in their minds was V'arim L'tapeinu. You know, it's like, do you live, what you make a living. So do you live for your living? Or is your living um, the things that I have to do for what's really important, which is to take care of my family? But you see that from Bnei Gad Uvnei Ruvain, that although they were honorable men, they were men of great piety and devotion, and they were willing to translate that into heroism, and they kept their word. But nonetheless, this flaw, this character failing of putting their business first, and their first priority wasn't their children, was very telling. And that's where they went wrong. You see, they were concerned with their business, so even though it was heroic, and they fulfilled their word, but it meant that they had to be away from their families for 14 years. And the question is, what happened to those children? Their whole generation of 14 years, the first generation that settled the land, the Never LaYarden, of the Bnei Gad Uvnei Ruvain, they were without fathers. And there was a disconnect. And they say that when you have a problem in a family, many times dysfunctionality, that's what they call it, dysfunctionality of the disconnect between fathers and children, between a parent and children, is multi-generational. And you have to arrest that. And if you or individuals weren't blessed to have parents who were there for their children, you have to be there for your children. And that was the problem. They abandoned their children. Heroic that they were, heroes, all of them, but unfortunately the damage was done to their children. And it was evident in subsequent generations. There was that disconnect until they got to the point where Golus was required by God to atone for that was wrong in order to save us all. And the ones who unfortunately suffered first because they were the ones with the biggest problems because of the family they came from. Because one generation couldn't model appropriate behavior, how to be a parent, because they didn't see that in their fathers, because their fathers weren't with them. They were away in battle. And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu, immediately, he picks up on this. And he tells the Bnei Gad Uvnei Ruvain, you're making a mistake. But if you look at the words of Moshe to the Bnei Gad, when he addresses them, he says, Benu lachem arim l'tabachem, v'gideiros l'tzona'achem. It's only after you put the first priority to your family, to your kids, and then you concern yourself with your business. And as Moshe said, V'hayotzei mipichem ta'asu, the key in life is not just to tell your kids what to do, but to show your kids. V'hayotzei mipichem, the values you transmit to your children. Ta'asu, that's how you live your life. The kids pick up and they know what the priority of their parents is. And if it's the business, if it's the car, and if it's the vacation, if it's the house and all the different fancy things, and that's the concern, kids pick that up. But if it's concern and just spending time, they talk about we're so busy, we need quality time with our kids. Guess what? Time is quality time. Just spending time and making them the focus of our lives. That's what's important. This is, I think, a core value that we have to recognize. And we have so many things, and we do it for the right reasons. But so many things pulling us in all different directions. But you have to be there for your kids. You have to be there for your grandchildren. If you're so blessed. You have to be there for your spouse, for your husband to a wife and a wife to a husband. And, they just had a ticker tape parade in Manhattan for all of the heroes who, during the terrible pandemic, the nurses and the doctors and the fire and police and all of the emergency personnel and all of the individuals who took care of the to take care of the shelves on all the stores, all of the needed personnel who really let us all, exist. Were there, putting themselves in harm's way, and they are heroes, and I don't want to take away anything from them. But in my mind, the Parsha here tells us that the ones who deserve the ticker tape parade are the ones who are constantly there to be there for their children, whatever age they are, or grandchildren who are there for their families. That's really where the heroes are. And the heroes are the ones who recognize that. And this is what the Pasuk says. God says he fulfilled the mitzvahs haTorah leman taskilu, that you should be able to be successful, es asher tasu, of what you will do. And what is the, Chazal asks, what is the handiwork of a person, of asher tasu? And the Chachamim answer it in two words, elu habanim, these are the children. Ultimately, no one is on a deathbed and bemoans the fact that, I should have spent more time at the office. But so many people at the last moments of their life are regretting the fact that they should have spent more time with the people they love. And that's where the heroes are. The heroes who find the time in their busy life to focus their attention on those important people. Leman taskilu, that's real success. Because ultimately, the true handiwork, the permanent handiwork, is not all of the projects and everything else, but it's with your kids. And that, I think, is a profound message that we should all take to heart this very important time of the 9 days in Tisha B'Av, of recognizing that the heroes can be found in our own living rooms, in our own homes, and that the heroes of the mommies and the daddies, of the grandparents who were there to take care of our kids, who should be still there to take care of our kids, those are the heroes that really should be celebrated and recognized. And that if we can do that, then these days of the 9 days and these days of leading up to Tisha B'Av will be transformed into days of joy, into days of nachas, and we will be able to achieve the Chazak v'nis chazek, that strength that we long for and that we so desperately need today, and allow us to reach that time, that moment of great joy, of that brighter future of tomorrow with the Bias HaGoel. B'mheira b'yameinu, amen. I wish everyone a good Shabbos, Chodesh Tov, and may we only celebrate Simchas in the future.